Thank you so much. I'm really very dedicated to movement and play, and so I was delighted to be asked to speak on this topic. And you know, some of you know that I have a little farm beside the Waldorf School, and just recently I observed the birth of a baby goat. And that little baby goat came out and flopped right down on the straw and kicked its way out of the placenta, the mother licking it as all the time. And then it stood up on all fours, stretched its legs, and then started nosing around, smelling around, touching around to find the nipple of its mother. And then it was latched on right away and was sucking and sucking, and that little tail wagging back and forth. And then it got up and just hopped away. And I thought, my goodness, that is so amazing how different it is for the young child. The young child, of course, it's a long step before the child gets to stand up. The child gets to make the sounds, the language. The child gets to think. And so, and then a long time before we get to the point where we can really think cognitively and we can master all these wonderful technologies that are there in the world. And we can also develop this amazing social relationship with others, develop creativity, think about values for the world, and so forth. It's quite a journey, and we're all on that journey still, aren't we? Whereas I think for our young animals, they just move very quickly into that role. So what happens with the young child is we need to give the child the time to develop in the right way, right from the beginning. And this is through movement so often. When the young child is coming down through the birth canal, the child is actually already using reflexes that are God-given, you could say, or innate. And actually, the child is turning its body in a certain way to prepare itself for going down into the birth canal and to be born. And then the child has to develop these reflexes to reach for sucking, the sucking reflex, the palm, the palming reflex, the little grasping, and the toe, the little toes that bend in, and all these reflexes that the child has to develop and use and integrate. And if the child does not have an opportunity to do that, then we call this retained reflexes that somehow, like if a child has not been able to grasp, then maybe later on they will still retain this reflex and hang on to things. These are pathologies that we have noticed. And so the most important thing for our very, very young children is to let them develop from inside themselves, for them to develop these movements, let them be on the ground, let them raise their bodies up like this. I had a friend, she was a neighbor, and she was into psychology, and she had a child, and I heard upstairs, because they lived upstairs, I heard this rolling going on, and I wondered, what was this? And it turned out it was one of these walker things, or the child was put in this, and so that he would be erect right away. Some months later, I saw her out in the grass in the front of the apartment, and she was crawling on her hands and knees beside this poor little boy. And I said, oh, what happened? What is this? And she said, oh, Jonathan missed his crawling stage. So we need to let the children have these opportunities to develop and move. So often our children are put in these car seats, you know, how many hours in these baby carriers that are stiff. I've seen women jogging along. The women are very slim and they look very athletic, and they are pushing these wheels along. The women are running along beautifully, and what's happening to the little child? The little child is hunched all up like this, poor little back, and it's just looking out. Now, children were meant to walk by themselves, this amazing event of life, to stand up. But gradually you need to slither on your belly first. It's called the reptilian stage, if you like. There were fish inside Mama's womb, and they were and wiggling and squirming. We need to do that. And then we need to be able to push up ourselves and then come back down, fall again, and push up again. And this is gaining a sense of movement. Proprioception, it's called often, is this sense of our own movement. Also, the child needs to, when you first stand up, you know how the child, it's like old ladies, sometimes they walk like this too, you know, they walk like this to keep their balance. Of course, with a diaper on, it also looks rather funny sometimes as well. But this balance is so important, that this vestibular activity, the interior of the ear, that is helping them to balance in life. So we need to let the children have those experiences. And we need to give them an environment where all this can happen. What is the best environment for children? Is an environment that is safe. Now, what if you were worried about a child walking on your floor? Wouldn't that be terrible? They couldn't really squirm and crawl and creep and stand and fall and play and explore because maybe the floor had some pesticides or some toxic elements in it. And we know that many carpets do. So how can we create an environment that's really safe for the child? How can we create a place in nature where the children can grasp at the grass and smell it and feel it and walk on stones and walk? If our lawns, for instance, are all covered with pesticides, this is one of the greatest problems, I think, even in Princeton. Our lawns have to be beautiful. Mine isn't, I assure you. But because I value the opportunity that the children would have to play and run and roll on my lawn at my farm. And so my inspiration for everything that I do, I have to confess, comes from a wonderful educator called Rudolf Steiner, who gave us, amongst many things, the gift of Waldorf education. The very first Waldorf school started in 1919, but Rudolf Steiner already before then had spoken about the need for the child to play, the need for the child to move, and let the child develop from the inside out. So we need to give the child opportunities to do so. So we have, of course, the home life is the most important time, up to the 3rd year, most precious time, where they're developing language as well as all these motor skills, these gross motor skills and fine motor skills. Let them experience all of nature, let them have lots of wonderful tactile experiences, balancing experiences in those first 3 years. And then they come to school. Well, what should school be like for the young child? We think in Waldorf that it should be full of opportunities for movement and play, for creative play. And this is why it's so much fun to be an early childhood teacher. I recommend it to all of you. My husband just gave me this today. He said, wow, look at that. You're giving a talk on this. Let the children play. Well, what does play mean? Play is really that we take materials and we work with them. We create environments with them. So as the child should be allowed to wander and explore the world, so in the classroom the child should be allowed to wander and pick up things and develop things. Now I brought a crate here. I'm not going to pull it all down, but the playthings in our early childhood classes are so simple. We have the crate is one of our favorite objects. There's and the rocking board here, and one of our early teachers, Susan Starr, invented the rocking board, and I think she should have patented it. She would have been rich because it's now out there in the public. But this rocking board, and all my babies will fall down, is just a simple piece of wood. Look at this. But what do the children do with it? They can get in it. They climb in it. Oh, I'm going to make the, and they rock in it. Okay, and I have a cord around my knees, so I have to be careful here. But they turn it over, it becomes a bridge, okay? As the children come into the classroom, sometimes we can build a little walkway for the children so that they come into the room walking on these bridges and on boards. We can take just simple boards like this and then line them up, and the children can build with them. They build themselves. We create an environment sometimes for them. These crates are wonderful. The children climb inside. They take a stick and they row. They can put this inside this, and they rock in it. They can take a cord like this, and they tie it around this box, and they pull themselves around the room. They can pick up, this is one of the favorite things of the children. Can you imagine? What is this? This is just a sack, and it's full of, I think it's millet. Sometimes I used to make them out of sand, and that made them really heavy. And the children love, you see, what we need for the children is the opportunity to pull and to lift so that they're using their muscles, and they're using their limbs. And to feel something like that is really great for the children. Will you contrast that to the plastic toys that we have that already have the form made for them? So that this thing here, what could it be? Oh, it could be a sack for the gnomes going off to get the gold, or it could be, I don't know what. Oh, I've seen it on top of their heads. It's just the simplest thing. So you have open-ended materials, just very simple materials. Another material that is just so beloved by the children is just the play cloth. What can you do with a cloth? Yes, you already know. You had this idea. I can be an old lady. I already am. I can be a prince. I can wrap my babies with this. The children, you know what they love to do? They love to put their babies on their backs and then wrap them around like this, like the mothers do in Africa when they're working with their babies. So the materials, look at this. Just, what can you do with that? We could just make some little birds, couldn't we? No? So easy. So we want our play materials to be open-ended, so they have, the children can use their imaginations. And Rudolf Steiner spoke about the doll. He said, you give the child a pretty doll with a face painted on it, and you harm the child. When there's too much detail in the form of something, then you don't allow the child's imagination to create the tears that the baby might be feeling, or the laughter it might be feeling. So keep it very simple, he said. So the thing with this education is that we're allowing the children to just use their imagination, create environments. And, you know, some people are very afraid of letting children really play and move freely. And why are they afraid of that? Because they think there's going to be chaos. And there could be chaos. But how do we help the children if a child is going crazy around the room? Maybe we have to ask him to be my pony. And, oh, would you stop now and pick up the load of bricks that need to go to the man who's building the house? Enter into the place where the child is. Enter into that play. So, and also you do have to manage it well. One of the great dangers of free play is that the parents just say, my child is having free play, and they're down in the romper room somewhere else, down in the basement. But we as teachers and as caregivers of young children must be amongst the children. So we are doing practical activities. Maybe I am starting to mix up the dough, or I'm grinding the grain, and the children can come and help grind the grain. But I am right in the midst of their play. I am right there around them, so that someone who needs to come and be close to me could be, but someone else might need to have this opportunity to be led into play in a special way. So play is so, so important. We have a wonderful friend called Joan Allman. She was a Waldorf early childhood teacher, and she actually ran the Kindergarten Association for all the Waldorf teachers in this country, the international organization. She dropped all of it to join this organization and lead this organization called the Alliance for Childhood. I have how many minutes? 2, okay. Alliance for Childhood, whose main goal is to work for the rights of the child to play and to have free play and move. We have indoor environments, but the outdoor environments are perhaps the most rich in varied play materials. Just look at that mud. Look at what the snow does, and the ice, the children who love cracking the ice and breaking the ice. And just all of the wonderful world of nature. It's the physical properties. The children can experience all the laws of physics in a way, movement with their bodies, balance, and so forth, but they can also experience the laws of chemistry as well in a very direct way if we allow them. Please let your children, let your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces or nephews, let them play, and don't be worried about the mess. You know, some of parents used to complain that they had to hose their children off before they could get them into their cars to take them home. But generally, the parents were grateful that their children had this opportunity to play with one another and to build relationships for life. And Rudolf Steiner said, how a child plays, that is how that person will be in later life as an adult. So look at us all. How many of you had wonderful play experiences? Aren't we wonderful? Look at us. Yeah. So I gather that went very quickly. Yes.